The Colville Confederated Tribes conduct oral history interviews with tribal elders to document the traditional value of historic properties around Lake Roosevelt behind Grand Coulee Dam in north central Washington state. Documentation of stories helps the Bonneville Power Administration and the Bureau of Reclamation to fulfill their responsibilities under the National Historic Preservation Act. In 2005, we conducted interviews to demonstrate how Indian legends are tied to the landscape. This production focuses on the stories told by Mr. Tom Louie of the Lakes Orson-Rich tribe. Tom relates two short stories about Kettle Falls, Marcus Flat, and Stall Creek in the upper Columbia River. Mr. Louie then relates portions of the Coyote Bringing Salmon legend where Coyote delivers the salmon runs to his people at Kettle Falls and Okanagan Falls in the upper Columbia River drainage all the way from Salado Falls on the lower Columbia River.
Hitamhulaw, Fisil, Snakshul. That was my Indian name. So my name before that was Lepiao, but my white given name is Tom Louie. We're known as the Snakit Skilo, the noisy water people, from right up over here, Kittle Fall, Hayes Island. That's where my people all are originated from here clear on up to the head of the lake, Arrow Lakes. As they call us today, Sinaik people. But as I understood it in our language, it was Snahit. But the European people couldn't say Snahit, so they said Sinaik, and that stuck. So that's what we're known as today. Kittle Falls was the gathering place for the people. Back then I'm talking about people that was back when the animals were the people. The two-leggeds wasn't even heard of then. And up there they would have their foot races, they would have their canoe races, they would have their swimming races, they had all these kind of races. Coyote, he was one of them that was quite a trickster. He was beating everybody. He would race these people and beat them. They would bet their tails, and he won them all. And the turtle, as everyone knows, is real slow. Can't hardly move. The Coyote challenged them, and he wanted to race them. So that night the three sisters got together and said, let's race Coyote tomorrow. Race him. I know we can beat him. How are we going to beat him? The sister told the one sister, you go halfway from Marcus Flat to Kittle Falls and you bury yourself in the sand. There, and he said, the other one you go clear down by Kittle Falls, right by that log, and you cover yourself in sand. And he said, I'll go up to Marcus Flat and I'll challenge Coyote for the race. Okay, but how are we going to do this? The turtle says, as soon as you hear me holler. Well, you holler, the second one, you holler and you throw the sand up and you start running. And as soon as Coyote passes you, then you holler. Then the third one will holler way up there, then throw the sand and let's step over the finish line. Now, that sounds like good plans. They was at the starting line, and Turtle said, I'm only going to race you on one condition. Coyote said, well, what's that? He said, when we start running, you can't look back. You can't look behind you. Got to look ahead. Got to promise me that. If you can't promise me that, then we won't race. Well, Coyote said, all right, I can do that. So Turtle got there and he said, as soon as I holler, you take off, because I'm going to be right behind you. So Coyote, he was sitting there, and Turtle hollered, boy, and Coyote kicked it in gear. Well, he wasn't running full speed. Turtle threw up the dust and hollered, and Coyote looked up ahead, and way up there, boy, he seen a patch of dust and heard the turtle holler. He said, "Holy Christ, how do you get up there?" And boy, Coyote took off. Run as fast as he could go, and run past the turtle, and he was laughing, and he said, "Oh, I can't look back." And he's laughing at the turtle, and he says, "I'll see you." And about that time, the turtle hollered, and all of a sudden, way up there again, turtle hollered again. Coyote just run his heart out, and Turtle stepped over the line. Told Coyote, said, "You run a good race, but you're really slow." Right up here at Stall Creek. Coyote's picture is on a rock up there, and it's still there of Coyote running with his brother. And the legend goes back to one day Coyote was walking along that hillside. This was after the two-leggeds had got here. Coyote was walking by there, and pretty soon he heard the two-leggeds down below. That's a decent clip. That's a decent clippy clip. Coyote walked around the hill, and he run into his brother. His brother said, "Geez, all them people know you down there." He said, "No," I said. And he said, "Well, how come you're St. Clip and I'm St. Clip?" And he said, "No, you're St. Clip, I'm another one." "No," he said, "we're both St. Clips." "No, you're St. Clip, I'm another." "No." Coyote said, "Well, I'll bet you your power." Because at that time, the Great Spirit gave them both, each two powers that they could use. And the other coyote thought, "This is going to be a cinch, because we're both coyotes, and he's trying to say he's another one, you know. I'll win his bag of powers for sure." So Coyote said, "All right, well, we'll run around the hill over there, and when we get to the other side, you stop." And he said, "But when you're running, you listen to them people down there." Okay, so the other coyote took off. And he said, "That's a decent clip, that's a decent clip." And he went around the hill, and the other coyote come and runs. He knocks, he knocks, there's another one." So got over there and took his brother's power. Back then, Coyote was our spokesperson. He was our chief. He's the one that communicated with the Great Spirit, and he would come down what the Great Spirit was going to do. He would communicate with Coyote, and Coyote would come down and he would share with the rest of us what was going to happen. Well, Coyote was communicating with the Great Spirit that one day, and the Great Spirit said, "There's going to be two-leggeds walking among you. So you're going to have to find out how you can take care of them." Well, when Coyote come back, he mentioned that to the people. Well, the spokesperson said, "You know, all we have in this river is just bottom fish. The three sisters way down there at Celilo, they've got all the salmon, but they got them blocked off. Salmon can't come up. And we need somebody to go down there and free them salmon and bring them up. But you have to be very careful. You have to have some good power, because them three sisters down there will kill you, drown you. So nobody really wanted to go down because it was too dangerous. And the three sisters were seagull, kingfish, and snipe. That was the three sisters that held the salmon captive. Coyote thought, "Well, I'll go. I'll go over there and I'll drum tonight, and whoever wants to go with me will take off in the morning." So Coyote, he went over there and he got his fire going, got his drum out. Well, there's a few people that went over there and looked to see who that was singing. Something going on. So they all got over there and they pushed the brush apart and said, oh, hell, that's just Coyote over there. Don't trust that guy. Well, Coyote stayed there all night and he drummed. He smoked his pipe, drummed, trying to get somebody to come go with him. And nobody comes, so early in the morning, Coyote got mad right at daybreak. Coyote got mad and he took off. And he went down on that side of the river, singing songs, and he's going telling himself stories, and he'd meet people along the way, you know. I'm going down here to Salilo and I'm going to try to get some salmon. You want to go with me? No. All right. All of a sudden you could hear this noise. Almost sounds like Kittle Falls. Boy, I must be getting close to that. That's Salilo Falls. And he said, I've been coming all this way, and he said, I never thought about how I was going to approach these three women. So he stopped that night, and he sat there and built him a fire, and I, how am I going to get them? How am I going to talk them into letting the salmon come up? They had them salmon down there for centuries, and they ain't going to let them come up. So I got to think of something. I know. Found this big piece of fir bark, and he pulled it down by the river. I'll transform myself into a baby, and I'll lay on that bark, and I'll float down the river. And he said, women cannot turn their back on a baby. Careful. So he did. He started floating down, and the older lady, Seagull, said, no, let that baby go over the falls. Kingfish said, yeah, sister's right. Bad trouble there. But Snipe, no, that's a baby. It's a helpless little baby, you know. We can't just let it drown, you know. So Snipe went out there and tried to get the bark in by herself. Well, Snipe, you've seen Snipe. She's a small little bird. She couldn't quite get it. So Kingfish, he went out there. So all three of them finally got the baby into the shore. Brought the baby up away from the water. While they all cooed over the baby, and oh gosh, what a beautiful looking thing. So the next morning, the roots were ready. So they got ready to go dig bitter roots and camas. He said, well, what about the baby? Well, we'll tie a rope around it and tie it to this bush so the baby can't crawl to the water, because we can't take it with us, you know. We'll go out there and we'll dig all day and we'll come back. I'm sure she'll be all right. So that morning, three women went out to dig their roots. As soon as they were out of sight, Coyote transformed himself back into Coyote. Boy, he started digging them rocks, throwing rocks, digging. He'd dig until he just about wore out, and the sun was getting way far down into the west. Boy, he'd have to hurry back, and he'd run back up and transform himself back into a baby. Three women had come back, and they'd feed him and check on him. Then they'd peel their roots, put their roots out on the rocks to dry. Next day, they'd go back out. They'd fix some food there for the baby, and they'd go back, dig again. Coyote, he'd get back, and he'd go back to work. And he'd dig. And that's why in that ceremony, at the salmon ceremony, that's why it's so important to have the rocks when you hit the rock, because that was Coyote digging for the salmon. And that's what the salmon heard, is the clicking of the rocks. So they knew that. Anyway, the last day, the sun was getting far over to the west, and there was a little bit of water starting to come through that little channel. Coyote was digging, and boy, Women are going to be back any time, but boy, if I quit now, they're going to notice the water is coming through, and they're going to notice that I'm up to no good, and they're going to kill me. So he had to keep digging, 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 and the women got back, and they seen Coyote digging. So they start throwing rocks, beating up on Coyote. Finally, Coyote got it broke loose where the water itself pushed the rocks out of the way. Coyote headed up the river. Coyote's words, ah, ah, ah. That's how come you hear him laughing at night when he barks like that. Got way up the river and looked back at the women. Ah, 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 ah. Told them salmon, all right, you guys come with me. I'm taking you up the river. And that's why he'd stop by every river, and he'd go up the river, and the spokesperson of that river, Coyote'd walk up there and he'd tell him, do you want salmon to come up your river? Oh, yeah. Well, if I give you salmon, you're going to have to let me have your youngest daughter. I don't know. Finally, Coyote said, lots of salmon. So finally the spokesperson would give in and give up his youngest daughter. Coyote didn't want to marry her. He just wanted to have his way with her. Then the next morning, he'd go on his way. Coyote done that to all the rivers that were coming up. Got to the Okanagan River, and he went up the Okanagan River while he had to go clear up to OK Falls. Get to the spokesperson up there. You want salmon to come up your river? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want your youngest daughter. Send her to my teepee tonight. Send her there in the morning. I'll let the salmon come up. I don't know about having my youngest daughter. But you go back there, their woman will be over there tonight. Coyote, he went and put up his lodge. Way late in the evening, here come this old lady come limping over to it. Coyote's camp. He said, I come to spend the night with you. Coyote just got done eating, and he got mad. Picked up all the fins, and he told that spokesperson up there, this is all the salmon you're going to get. He threw them fins over OK Falls. That's how come up in that area. All they got some little Kootenai salmon. They just got their little salmon full of bones. So he come down, and he brought them all the way up to Kittle Falls when he brought the salmon. And there's many legends. The Okanagan River, Omak Lake, Moses Mountain, White Mountain, up across the line. I left here, I heard the legends of Coyote clear across the United States, and I followed them. Clear back there, a little ways out of Norfolk, Virginia, there's an island of rocks that go out, and that last rock sets out there in the ocean. It's a Coyote sitting there, looking out at the ocean. Go clear down into Old Mexico. Go down in there. You see where Coyote was called, where he turned this valley into the people. He turned them into stone because they were so mean. Clear back up into Canada. Legends up there where Coyote made pillars, big tall pillars with different colored rocks. Made pillars, and them pillars still stand today. Up there, on the north side of Old Whitey, the north side of the big mountain up there. Clear back into Montana, clear back. These legends are just all over. I follow the legends, and it is very true that wherever the legends are spoke, when you follow that trail, you see his landmarks. He's left them all the way across country. Every crevice, every mountain, the story is a long story. But the reason why it's so long is because it's was the way of life of our people, from our understanding. It goes back to the teaching of our belief system, that we always have to believe that there is a power greater than oneself, you know. And I believe firmly in that, and I believe you need to find this power greater than yourself. And I don't care if it's through the Catholic Church. I don't care if it's through the Shakers. I don't care if it's through the Seventh-day Adventist. I don't care where you get it or where you learn about it. But I do understand that you need to have this power greater than yourself, that you have a foundation to fall back on. From there we get a belief system that we can start growing our own self. My intention was getting the truth across there, that we all have our belief system. We all have our culture. It's not a church, not a religion. It's just the way of life, the way our people lived years ago along the Columbia River.